The room was filled with laughter, but it wasn't the kind that makes you feel warm and happy. It was sharp, like knives cutting through the air. At the center of a long, fancy dining table sat Tom, a quiet man with messy hair and a plain gray jacket. His face was red, and his hands shook as he held his fork. A group of rich, well-dressed people leaned forward, their eyes sparkling with cruel joy. Before we begin the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Please subscribe to my channel for more sweet videos like this. Let the story continue. One of them, a tall man named Victor with a shiny gold watch, pointed at Tom and laughed louder than the rest. "Look at this guy," Victor shouted, his voice booming over the clinking glasses and soft piano music in the background. "He thinks he belongs here? What's that jacket? Did you pull it out of a dumpster?" The others roared with laughter, some slapping the table, others wiping tears from their eyes. A woman in a sparkly red dress, Sophia, leaned toward Tom and smirked. "Tell me, Tom, do you even know what a stock portfolio is? Or are you just here to eat our leftovers?" Tom's fork slipped from his hand and clattered onto his plate. His cheeks burned, and he stared down at his untouched food-a-fancy steak with some kind of sauce he didn't recognize. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The room felt like it was closing in, the chandeliers above glittering like they were mocking him too. Everyone was watching, waiting for him to crack. Then Victor leaned closer, his voice low but dripping with venom. "You're nobody, Tom. You're nothing. Why don't you just leave before you embarrass yourself more?" He flicked a piece of bread at Tom, and it hit him square in the chest. The table erupted in laughter again, louder this time, echoing off the high ceilings of the mansion's dining room. Tom's hands curled into fists under the table. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. He wanted to scream, to tell them they were wrong, to make them feel small, like they were making him feel. But instead, he stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the polished floor. Every eye was on him. He looked at Victor, then at Sophia, at the others, their faces twisted with smug grins. "I'll go," Tom said quietly, his voice shaking but steady. He turned toward the door, his steps slow, like he was carrying a heavy weight. The laughter followed him, growing fainter as he reached the hallway. But just before he stepped out of sight, he stopped. His hand rested on the doorframe, and he turned his head slightly, just enough to glance back at the table. His eyes weren't soft anymore. They were sharp, like a storm was brewing inside him. "You'll regret this," he said, so softly that only the closest guests heard. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him. What did Tom mean? Why was he even there, sitting at a table full of people who hated him? And what was he going to do next? To understand, we have to go back to the beginning, to a time when Tom was just a name no one cared about yet. 3 weeks earlier, Tom woke up in a tiny apartment with peeling wallpaper and a leaky faucet that dripped no matter how many times he tried to fix it. The place smelled like old coffee and damp socks, but it was home. He stretched, his back sore from the lumpy mattress, and checked his phone. One new email. He opened it, squinting at the bright screen in the dim room. "Dear Mr. Thomas Reed," the email began, "you are cordially invited to the annual Crestwood Gala, hosted by Victor and Sophia Crestwood. This exclusive event brings together the city's most influential minds. We believe your presence would be valuable. Date, October 10th. Dress code, formal, RSVP required." Tom blinked. He read it again. The Crestwood Gala? He'd heard of it, everyone had. It was where rich people, famous people, and powerful people went to show off. Why would they invite him? He wasn't rich or famous. He worked at a small bookstore, sorting dusty novels and helping old ladies find romance paperbacks. His bank account had 47.32 last time he checked, and his formal clothes were a suit he wore to his cousin's wedding 2 years ago. He laughed out loud, the sound echoing in the empty apartment. "Must be a mistake," he muttered, tossing the phone onto the bed. But something stopped him from deleting the email. The words, "Your presence would be valuable," stuck in his mind. What did that mean? He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the email, his curiosity growing like a tiny spark. Later that day, at the bookstore, Tom couldn't focus. He kept thinking about the invitation. During his lunch break, he Googled the Crestwoods. Victor Crestwood was a big-shot investor who owned half the skyscrapers downtown. Sophia, his wife, was a former model who now ran a charity that seemed more about fancy parties than helping people. Their friends were all like them, rich, loud, and untouchable. Tom's life was the opposite. He grew up in a small town, raised by his grandma after his parents died in a car accident when he was 6. He wasn't special. Or was he? That night, he called his best friend, Mia, who worked at a coffee shop and always had an opinion. "Mia, you're not going to believe this," he said, reading her the email. She gasped so loudly he had to pull the phone away from his ear. "Tom, you have to go," she squealed. "This is your chance to see how the other half lives. Maybe you'll meet someone important. Or, I don't know, get discovered or something." "Discovered for what?" Tom asked, rolling his eyes. "Shelving books well?" "Stop it," Mia said. "You're smart, Tom. Smarter than you think. Maybe someone knows something about you that you don't. Go." "What's the worst that could happen?" Tom didn't answer, but his mind was racing. Mia was right. What was the worst that could happen? He'd eat some fancy food, feel out of place, and come home. No big deal. But deep down, he felt something else. A pull, like this invitation wasn't random, like it was the start of something big. He typed a quick reply. "I'll be there. Thank you for the invitation." He hit send before he could change his mind. The second he did, his stomach twisted. What had he just agreed to? Over the next few weeks, Tom prepared. He borrowed money from Mia to rent a suit knot. A great one, but it was better than his old wedding outfit. He practiced tying a tie using a YouTube video, muttering to himself when the knot kept coming out lopsided. He even tried to learn about stocks and investments, just in case someone asked him something fancy. But the more he read, the more confused he got. Words like dividends and hedge funds swam in his head like fish he couldn't catch. The night of the gala arrived, and Tom stood in front of his cracked bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie for the 10th time. His hair wouldn't stay neat, and the suit felt too tight around his shoulders. "You can do this," he told his reflection. But his reflection looked like it didn't believe him. The Crestwood mansion was an hour's drive away, in a part of the city Tom had never been to. He took a bus, then walked the last mile because he couldn't afford a taxi. The streets got wider, the houses bigger, until he reached a gate that looked like it belonged to a castle. A security guard checked his name on a list, raising an eyebrow but letting him through. Tom's heart raced as he walked up a long driveway lined with glowing lanterns. The mansion loomed ahead, all glass and stone, with music and laughter spilling out. Inside, it was like stepping into a movie. Chandeliers sparkled. Waiters carried trays of tiny foods Tom didn't recognize, and everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine. Tom froze, his breath catching in his throat as he stared at the open car door. The black sedan gleamed under the lantern light, its engine humming softly, like a beast waiting to pounce. The voice from inside was calm but firm, and it sent a shiver down his spine. "Get in, Mr. Reed. We have work to do." He glanced back at the mansion, where the faint sound of laughter still drifted through the night air. His heart pounded, torn between the anger burning in his chest and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Who was this? Why did they know his name? And why did they sound like they'd been waiting for him? Tom took a deep breath and slid into the car. The door shut with a heavy thud, and the world outside disappeared behind tinted windows. The interior smelled of leather and expensive cologne. In the dim light, he could make out a figure sitting across from him, a man in a sharp suit, his face half hidden in shadow. The man leaned forward, and Tom caught a glimpse of silver hair and piercing blue eyes. "You handled that better than I expected," the man said, his voice smooth but with an edge, like he was testing Tom. "Most people would have cracked under that kind of pressure." Tom's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The man smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile that made you feel like you were being sized up. "Call me Marcus," he said. "And I've been watching you for a long time, Thomas Reed." Tom's stomach twisted. Watching him? Why? He shifted in his seat, suddenly aware of how small he felt in this sleek, expensive car. "What do you want with me?" he asked, trying to sound braver than he felt. Marcus leaned back, his fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. "I want to help you, Tom. Those people in there," he nodded toward the mansion. "They think they're untouchable. They think they can humiliate anyone they want and get away with it. But you're not just anyone, are you?" Tom's heart skipped a beat. He opened his mouth to protest, to say he was just a bookstore clerk, but something stopped him. Marcus's words echoed the strange feeling he'd had ever since that invitation arrived. Like there was more to him than he knew. Like he was standing on the edge of a secret he'd forgotten. "I don't know what you're talking about," Tom said finally, his voice shaking. Marcus chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "Oh? You will. But first, let me ask you something. Did you ever wonder why you got that invitation? Why the Crestwoods, of all people, want you at their precious gala?" Tom nodded slowly. "I thought it was a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake," Marcus said, his eyes locking onto Tom's. "It was a trap, and you walked right into it." The story went back to the days after Tom received the invitation. While he was busy practicing his tie knots and borrowing money for a suit, something else was happening behind the scenes, something he had no idea about. Victor Crestwood sat in his sleek office at the top of a skyscraper, the city sprawling beneath him like a map he owned. Across from him was Sophia, flipping through a magazine, her red-painted nails tapping impatiently. A man in a gray suit stood by the window, holding a thin folder. His name was Leonard, and he was Victor's fixer, the guy who made problems disappear. "So, this Tom Reed," Victor said, leaning back in his chair. "You're sure he's the one?" Leonard nodded, opening the folder and sliding a photo across the desk. It was Tom, taken from a distance, walking out of the bookstore with a stack of books under his arm. He looked ordinary, unremarkable. "It's him," Leonard said. "The records match. He's been off the grid for years, but we found him." Sophia glanced at the photo and wrinkled her nose. "He looks like a nobody. Why are we wasting time on him?" Victor smirked, picking up the photo and studying it. "Because, my dear, he's not a nobody. He's a ghost. And ghosts can be dangerous if you don't deal with them." Sophia rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. Just tell me why he matters." Victor set the photo down and tapped it with his finger. "Let's just say Tom Reed has something we want, something very valuable, and the best way to get it is to make sure he knows his place." Leonard cleared his throat. "The plan is simple. Invite him to the gala, make him feel small, push him until he breaks. If he's as weak as he looks, he'll run and never come back. If he's not..." Leonard trailed off, his eyes narrowing. Victor finished the thought. "If he's not, we'll deal with him another way." Sophia laughed, closing her magazine. "Oh, this will be fun. I love a good game." The plan was set. The invitation was sent, carefully worded to lure Tom in without raising suspicion. Victor and Sophia didn't know everything about Tom, but they knew enough to want him out of the picture. They thought they were in control, pulling the strings like puppet masters. They had no idea they were playing with fire. Back in the car, Tom's mind raced as Marcus's words sank in. A trap? The gala? The laughter? The bread thrown at his chest? It was all planned? His hands clenched into fists, his nails digging into his palms. "Why?" he asked, his voice louder now. "Why would they do that? I don't even know them." Marcus raised an eyebrow, like he was impressed by Tom's sudden fire. "You don't know them," he said, "but they know you. Or at least, they think they do. Tell me, Tom, do you ever think about your parents?" Tom froze. His parents. The car accident. The blurry memories of being 6 years old, sitting in his grandma's kitchen while she cried. He hadn't thought about them in years. Not really. It hurt too much. "What do they have to do with this?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Marcus didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, worn envelope. He handed it to Tom, who took it with trembling hands. The paper was yellowed, the edges frayed, and Tom's name was written on it in a handwriting he didn't recognize. "Open it," Marcus said. Tom's fingers fumbled as he tore the envelope open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly. He unfolded it and read the first line. "To our son, Thomas, if you're reading this, we're gone." His breath caught in his throat. It was a letter from his parents. His eyes scanned the words, but they blurred as tears welled up. The letter was short, but every sentence hit like a punch. It talked about love, about secrets, about a legacy Tom was meant to carry. One line stood out. "You are more than you know. Trust yourself and never let them take what's yours." Tom looked up at Marcus, his voice shaking. "What does this mean? What's mine, and who's them?" Marcus's smile returned, sharper this time. "That's what we're going to find out. But first, you need to decide something, Tom. Those people in that mansion, they hurt you. They wanted to break you. Are you going to let them win, or are you going to fight back?" Tom's heart pounded. He thought about Victor's smug grin, Sophia's mocking laugh, and the bread hitting his chest. He thought about the letter, his parents' words echoing in his mind. He didn't know what was going on, not really, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to run away. "I want to fight," he said, his voice steady for the first time that night. Marcus nodded, like he'd expected nothing less. "Good. Then let's get to work." The car pulled away from the mansion, speeding into the night. Tom clutched the letter, his mind spinning with questions. What did his parents leave him? Why were the Crestwoods so determined to crush him? And who was Marcus? The next morning, Tom woke up in a place he didn't recognize. The bed was soft, the room clean and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows showing a city skyline that sparkled in the dawn light. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, trying to piece together how he'd gotten here. After the car ride, Marcus had taken him to a private office where they'd talked for hours. Marcus had shown him documents, photos, things that didn't make sense yet but hinted at a life Tom had never known. Then, exhausted, Tom had fallen asleep on a couch, and now, here he was. A knock on the door made him jump. "Come in," he called, his voice hoarse. Marcus stepped inside, holding a tablet. He was dressed in a different suit, but his eyes were just as sharp. "Sleep well?" he asked. Tom shook his head. "Not really. I keep thinking about that letter, and you still haven't told me everything." Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, setting the tablet down. "You're right. I've been careful because I needed to know you were ready, but you are. So here's the truth, or at least part of it." He tapped the tablet, and a photo appeared. It was Tom's parents, younger, smiling, standing in front of a building with a sign that read, "Reed Innovations." Tom's breath caught. He'd never seen this picture before. "Your parents weren't just ordinary people," Marcus said. "They were brilliant. They built a company, a tech company, that was on the verge of changing the world. But they died before it could happen. And you, Tom, are the heir to what they left behind." Tom's mouth opened, but no words came out. A company? An heir? It sounded like something from a movie, not his life. "But I don't have anything," he said. "I work at a bookstore. I'm broke." Marcus's eyes gleamed. "That's what they wanted you to think. The Crestwoods and others like them made sure you stayed in the dark. But they slipped up when they invited you to that gala. They thought they could scare you away. Instead, they woke you up." Tom's head spun. He looked at the photo again, his parents' faces so familiar yet so strange. "What do I do now?" he asked. Marcus stood, his voice firm. "You take back what's yours, but it won't be easy. The Crestwoods are powerful, and they're not the only ones who want to keep you down. You'll need to be smart, Tom, and you'll need to trust me." Tom nodded, but a tiny seed of doubt grew in his mind. Marcus knew so much, too much. Was he really on Tom's side, or was there something else going on? Before he could ask, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face darkened. "We have a problem," he said. The Crestwoods know you didn't run. They're already making moves. What kind of moves? Tom asked, his stomach sinking. Marcus didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the window, staring out at the city. They're coming for you, Tom, and they're not playing games anymore. Just then, the door burst open, and a woman stormed in. She was young, with short black hair and a leather jacket, her eyes wild with urgency. Marcus, we've got trouble, she said. They found us. They're here. Tom's heart stopped. Who was here? The Crestwoods? Someone else? Before he could ask, the room shook with a loud crash, like something had exploded downstairs. Marcus grabbed Tom's arm, his voice low and urgent. Run. Now. The room shook again, a deep boom rattling the windows and sending a glass of water tumbling off the bedside table. Tom's heart raced as he stumbled to his feet, his eyes darting between Marcus and the woman in the leather jacket. What's happening? He shouted, his voice cracking. No time to explain, Marcus snapped, his calm demeanor replaced by a sharp urgency. He grabbed Tom's arm and pulled him toward the door. The woman, whose name Tom still didn't know, was already moving, her hand hovering near something tucked under her jacket, a gun, maybe? Tom's stomach twisted. This was real. Too real. Move! The woman barked, her voice cutting through the panic in Tom's head. Another crash echoed from below, closer this time, followed by the sound of shattering glass and heavy footsteps. Someone was in the building, and they weren't here to talk. Tom's legs felt like jelly, but he ran, following Marcus and the woman down a sleek hallway lined with modern art and polished wood. The place looked like a fancy hotel or a secret headquarters, but there was no time to take it in. Alarms blared, red lights flashing on the ceiling. Behind them, shouts filled the air deep, angry voices barking orders. Who's after us? Tom gasped as they rounded a corner, nearly tripping over his own feet. The Crestwoods people, Marcus said without looking back. Or someone they hired. They move fast. Tom's mind spun. The Crestwoods? The same people who laughed at him last night? Who threw bread at him like he was a stray dog? How did they know where he was? And why were they sending armed men after him? The letter from his parents flashed in his mind. Never let them take what's yours. What was it they wanted so badly? The woman led them to a stairwell, shoving the door open with her shoulder. Elevators are too risky, she said, her boots clanging on the metal steps as they descended. We need to get to the garage. Tom's lungs burned as he tried to keep up. Garage? Then what? Then we disappear, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the chaos. You're not safe here anymore, Tom. They burst through a door into a dimly lit parking garage, the air cold and smelling of oil. Rows of shiny cars gleamed under flickering lights, but Marcus headed straight for a plain black van parked in the corner. The woman yanked open the side door, and Marcus pushed Tom inside. Get down, he ordered, climbing in after him. Tom crouched on the floor, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might explode. The woman jumped into the driver's seat, and the engine roared to life. Just as she slammed her foot on the gas, the garage door at the far end of the lot exploded inward, sending chunks of metal flying. 3 men in dark suits stormed in, their faces hidden behind black masks. They carried guns, big ones, and they weren't hesitating. Go, Lena! Marcus shouted. Lena's woman swerved the van, tires screeching as she sped toward the exit. Gunshots rang out, loud and sharp, and Tom ducked lower, covering his head with his arms. Bullets pinged off the van's side, each one making him flinch. They're shooting at us, he yelled, his voice high with panic. Stay down, Lena growled, her eyes locked on the road as she weaved through the garage. She hit a ramp, and the van lurched upward, bursting out onto a city street. Horns blared as she cut through traffic, the van rocking wildly. Tom peeked out the window and saw 2 black SUVs speeding after them, their engines roaring like predators. Who are these people? Tom demanded, his voice shaking. Why are they trying to kill me? Marcus was crouched near the back window, peering out at their pursuers. They're not trying to kill you, he said, his tone grim. Not yet. They want you alive for now. That's not comforting, Tom snapped, his fear turning to anger. You keep saying I'm important, that I have something they want. What is it? Tell me. Marcus turned to him, his blue eyes cold but focused. Your parents left you more than a letter, Tom. They left you a key. Not a physical one, but something just as real. It's tied to their company, Reed Innovations, and it's worth billions. Tom's jaw dropped. Billions? His parents? The ones who lived in a small house, drove a beat-up car, and made him pancakes on Sundays? You're lying, he said, but his voice wavered. They weren't rich. They were normal. They were brilliant, Marcus corrected. And they hid their work to protect you. But the Crestwoods know about it now, and they'll do anything to get it. Before Tom could ask more, Lena shouted, Hold on. She jerked the wheel, sending the van skidding into a narrow alley. The SUVs followed, their headlights glaring like angry eyes. One of them rammed the back of the van, and Tom slid across the floor, slamming into a metal toolbox. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he gritted his teeth and crawled back to Marcus. What's the plan? Tom asked, his voice desperate. We can't just keep running. Marcus pulled a small device from his Pacetta's sleek black box with a blinking red light. We don't run forever, he said. We fight smart. He pressed a button on the device, and a loud pop echoed behind them. Tom looked out the back window and saw a cloud of smoke billowing from the alley, swallowing the SUVs. Their headlights faded, and their engines sputtered. Smoke bombs, Lena said with a grin, glancing at Marcus in the rearview mirror. Nice one. Don't celebrate yet, Marcus warned. That'll slow them, not stop them. Lena nodded and floored the gas, the van speeding through the city. Skyscrapers blurred past, their lights streaking like comets. Tom's mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. A key. Billions. His parents. The Crestwoods. It was too much. Like a puzzle with half the pieces missing. And Marcus could he trust him? The man knew everything. But he was still holding back. And Lena, who was she? Another piece of this crazy game? The van screeched to a stop in an abandoned warehouse district, the kind of place where broken windows and rusted pipes were the only decorations. Lena cut the engine, and the sudden silence was deafening. Tom's ears rang from the chase, his body aching from being tossed around. He sat up, wiping sweat from his forehead. Are we safe? He asked, his voice small. For now, Marcus said, climbing out of the van. But we need to move fast. They'll find us again. Lena opened the side door and helped Tom out. Her grip was strong, her eyes scanning the shadows like she expected trouble. You okay, kid? She asked, her tone softer than before. Tom nodded, though he didn't feel okay. Who are you? He asked. And don't say no time to explain. I deserve answers. Lena smirked, glancing at Marcus. He's got guts, I'll give him that. Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. Fine. Lena's my associate. She's good at getting people out of trouble, and right now, you're in a lot of it. Why are you helping me? Tom pressed, his voice rising. What's in it for you? Marcus's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Tom thought he'd pushed too far. But then Marcus softened, just a little. Let's just say I owed your parents a favor. A big one. And I'm not the kind of man who forgets his debts. Tom wanted to ask more, but Lena interrupted. We need to get inside. This place is secure, but not for long. They led Tom into a warehouse that looked abandoned on the outside, but was anything but on the inside. The walls were lined with computers, monitors, and stacks of files. A table in the center held maps, blueprints, and a coffee maker that smelled like it had been working overtime. It was like a secret lair, and Tom's jaw dropped as he took it all in. What is this place? He asked, his voice echoing in the vast space. Our base, Lena said, tossing her jacket onto a chair. Welcome to the Resistance. Resistance? Tom repeated, his eyes wide. Against what? Against people like the Crestwoods, Marcus said, sitting at the table and opening a laptop. People who think they can control everything and everyone. Your parents were part of this, Tom. They fought back, and now it's your turn. Tom's head spun. He sank into a chair, his hands shaking. "I'm not a fighter," he said. "I'm just me." Marcus looked at him, his expression unreadable. "You're more than you think, and you're about to prove it." Lena handed Tom a bottle of water, her eyes softening. "Drink. You're gonna need your strength." Tom took a sip, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about the gala, the humiliation, the letter, the chase, and then he remembered something small, but strange. At the gala, just before Victor threw the bread, Tom had noticed a man at the far end of the table. He hadn't laughed with the others. He'd watched Tom, his eyes sharp and curious, like he knew something no one else did. Who was he? And why did Tom feel like he'd seen him before? Before he could mention it, Marcus's laptop beeped. He leaned forward, his face grim. "They're closer than I thought," he said. "The Crestwoods just put out a bounty on you, Tom. A big one." "A bounty?" Tom's voice cracked. "Like they're paying people to find me?" "Or worse," Lena said, checking her phone. "Half the city's mercenaries are probably on your tail by now." Tom's stomach dropped. He wasn't just running from the Crestwoods anymore. He was running from an army. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Marcus stood, his jaw tight. "We stay one step ahead. There's a safe house upstate. We'll head there tonight. But first, we need to know what they're planning. Lena, get the drone ready. Tom, you're with me." "Wait," Tom said, standing up. "I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what this key is. You keep saying it's worth billions, but what is it? A code? A file? What?" Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "It's a program," he said. "A piece of software your parents developed. It's revolutionary. It could change how the world works. Money, power, everything. The Crestwoods want to control it. We want to protect it." Tom's mind raced. A program? His parents were coders? He'd never even seen them use a computer. "Where is it?" he asked. Marcus's eyes locked onto his. "That's the problem. We don't know, but we think you do." Tom blinked. "Me? I don't know anything about a program." "Maybe not consciously," Marcus said. "But your parents were careful. They hid it where no one could find it except you." Before Tom could process that, Lena shouted from across the room. "Marcus, we've got company! Drones, 3 of them, closing in fast!" Marcus cursed under his breath. "They found us already. Tom, grab that bag. Lena, get the defenses up." Tom's heart pounded as he grabbed the black duffel bag from the table. The warehouse lights flickered, and a low hum filled the air. Outside, the sound of rotors grew louder, like giant wasps circling their prey. Lena ran to a control panel, her fingers flying over buttons. Metal shutters slammed down over the windows, and a screen lit up, showing 3 drones armed with camera sand, something that looked suspiciously like guns. "They're not just watching," Lena said, her voice tense. "They're armed." Tom's knees buckled. Armed drones? A bounty? A secret program? This wasn't his life. He was a bookstore clerk, not a spy. But as the first drone fired, sending a burst of bullets through the warehouse roof, Tom realized something. He didn't have a choice. Not anymore. Marcus grabbed his arm, pulling him toward a trapdoor in the floor. "Down here now." As they scrambled into the dark, the warehouse erupted in chaos gunfire, explosions, and the scream of tearing metal. Tom's last thought before the trapdoor slammed shut was of the man at the gala, the one who didn't laugh. His face was burned into Tom's mind, and something told him that man was the key to everything. Who was he, and what did he know that Tom didn't? The trapdoor slammed shut above Tom's head, plunging him into darkness. The air was damp and smelled of rust and earth, like a forgotten basement. His heart pounded as he stumbled down a narrow staircase, Marcus's hand gripping his arm like a lifeline. Behind them, the warehouse roared with chaos gunfire, explosions, and the screech of metal as the drones tore through the defenses. Lena's footsteps echoed close behind, her breath sharp and quick. "Keep moving," Marcus hissed, his voice cutting through the panic in Tom's mind. The stairs ended at a tunnel, its walls lined with flickering lights that cast eerie shadows. Tom's legs burned, but he ran, the duffel bag bouncing against his side. The sounds of the attack grew fainter, but the danger felt closer than ever. "Where are we going?" Tom gasped, his voice bouncing off the concrete walls. "Safe house," Lena said from behind, her tone clipped. "If we make it." Tom's stomach twisted. If? He wanted to stop, to demand answers, to scream that he didn't sign up for this. But the memory of the drones, those cold, mechanical eyes and their spitting bullets kept him moving. He wasn't just running for his life. He was running towards something, even if he didn't know what it was yet. The tunnel seemed to stretch forever, twisting and turning, until Tom lost all sense of direction. Finally, they reached a heavy metal door. Marcus punched the code into a keypad, and the door groaned open, revealing a small, dimly lit garage. A dusty SUV sat in the center, its keys dangling from the ignition. Lena slid into the driver's seat without a word, while Marcus pushed Tom into the back. "Buckle up," Lena said, her voice grim. "This isn't over." The SUV roared to life, and they sped out of the garage, bursting onto a quiet street lined with abandoned factories. The city skyline glowed in the distance, but it felt like a different world Tom wasn't sure he'd ever see again. He clutched the duffel bag, his mind racing. The man at the gala, the one who didn't laugh, kept flashing in his head. Those eyes, sharp and knowing, like they saw right through him. Who was he? And why did Tom feel like he was the missing piece in this nightmare? Hours earlier, back at the Crestwood mansion, the gala had ended, but the night was far from over. Victor stood in his private study, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring out at the city lights. Sophia lounged on a leather couch, her red dress swapped for a silk robe, her face twisted with annoyance. "They lost him," she said, tossing her phone onto the coffee table. "Leonard's team tracked him to a warehouse, but he slipped away. Again." Victor's jaw tightened, but he didn't turn around. "He's not as weak as we thought," he said, his voice low. "That's a problem." Sophia scoffed, crossing her arms. "He's a nobody, Victor. A bookstore clerk in a cheap suit. How is he dodging Leonard's men? Someone's helping him." Victor took a slow sip of his whiskey, his mind working. "Someone with resources," he said. "Someone who knows what he's worth." Sophia sat up, her eyes narrowing. "You still haven't told me what that is. This key you keep talking about. What's so special about it?" Victor finally turned, his face hard. "It's not just a key, Sophia. It's the future." Reed Innovations was developing a kind of artificial intelligence, but not like anything you've seen. It could predict markets, manipulate systems, and control information flows. Whoever has it could run the world. Sophia's eyes widened, a greedy spark lighting them up. "And Tom has it?" Victor nodded. "His parents hid it. We don't know how, but it's tied to him. That's why we needed him at the gelato, see if he'd crack, to see if he knew anything. But he didn't break. He got angry." Sophia laughed, but it was sharp, nervous. "Angry? That mouse?" "He practically ran out crying." Victor didn't smile. "You didn't see his eyes when he left. He's not running forever. And if he figures out what he has..." He trailed off, his fingers tightening around the glass. The door to the study opened, and Leonard stepped in, his gray suit wrinkled from a long night. His face was grim, and he held a tablet. "We've got a problem," he said, handing the tablet to Victor. "The warehouse wasn't just a hideout. It was a hub. We found servers, encrypted files, and traces of a network we didn't know existed." Victor scrolled through the tablet, his expression darkening. "A network? Who's behind it?" Leonard hesitated. "We don't know yet, but whoever they are, they're organized, and they've been watching us as closely as we've been watching Tom." Sophia stood, her robe slipping off one shoulder. "This is getting out of hand, Victor. If this program is as big as you say, we can't let some nobody ruin it. We need to end this." Victor set the tablet down, his mind racing. "We will," he said. "But we need to be careful. Tom's not alone anymore. And the man helping him, I have a feeling I know who it is. Who? Sophia demanded. Victor's eyes narrowed. An old enemy. Someone I thought was gone for good. Back in the SUV, Tom's hands shook as he unzipped the duffel bag. Inside were clothes, a burner phone, and a small metal case with a digital lock. He held it up, his voice trembling. What's this? Marcus glanced back from the passenger seat. Insurance, he said. Don't open it yet. You'll know when the time's right. Tom's frustration boiled over. Stop with the cryptic stuff. I'm being chased by drones, shot at, and you're telling me to wait? I need to know what's going on. Lena's eyes flicked to him in the rearview mirror. Kid, you're alive because of Marcus. Maybe trust him a little. Trust him? Tom snapped. I don't even know him. Or you. For all I know, you're using me, just like the Crestwoods. Marcus's face didn't change, but his voice was colder now. You're right to be careful, Tom. But if I wanted to use you, I wouldn't have risked my life back there. I'm here because your parents trusted me, and because I believe in what they were trying to do. Tom's anger faltered, replaced by a hollow ache. His parents, the letter, the photo of them in front of Reed Innovations. He wanted to believe Marcus, but the doubts kept creeping in. You said the key is a program, he said, and that I know where it is. How? I don't remember anything. Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. Your parents were careful. They knew their work was dangerous. So they protected you the only way they could by hiding the truth, even from you. The program isn't just code, it's part of you. Tom's blood ran cold. Part of me? What does that mean? Before Marcus could answer, Lena slammed on the brakes, the SUV skidding to a stop. We've got company, she said, her voice tight. Tom looked out the window and saw headlights in the distance, 3 sets, closing in fast. Already? Marcus muttered, pulling a gun from his jacket. Tom's eyes widened. He'd never seen a real gun up close, and the sight of it made his stomach lurch. Lena turned the wheel, veering off the road into a dense forest. Branches scraped the SUV sides, and the vehicle bounced over roots and rocks. Hold on, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. The headlights followed, their beams cutting through the trees like searchlights. Tom's heart raced. What do we do? He asked, clutching the metal case like it was a lifeline. We lose them, Lena said, her eyes locked on the path ahead. There's a river up ahead. If we can cross it, they'll have a harder time following. Marcus turned to Tom, his expression grim. If we don't make it, you need to run, take the case, and don't look back. Tom's throat tightened. Run where? I don't even know what I'm doing. You'll figure it out, Marcus said, his voice softer now. You're your parents' son. You're stronger than you think. The SUV hit a clearing, and the river came into Viewa wide, rushing torrent glinting under the moonlight. Lena gunned the engine, aiming for a shallow crossing. But just as they neared the bank, one of the pursuing vehicles rammed them from behind. The SUV spun, tires slipping in the mud, and Tom's head slammed against the window. Pain exploded behind his eyes, and for a moment, everything went blurry. He heard Lena curse, Marcus shouting, and the roar of the river. Then, a memory hit him sharp and vivid, like a movie playing in his mind. He was 6 years old, sitting in his parents' garage. His dad was at a computer, typing furiously, while his mom whispered, It's in him, David. It's safe. His dad nodded, his face tired but determined. He'll know when it's time. Tom blinked, the memory fading as the SUV lurched forward again. Lena had regained control, and they were splashing through the river, water spraying around them. The pursuing vehicles hesitated at the bank, their engines roaring but not following. We made it, Lena shouted, a grin breaking through her tension. But Tom wasn't listening. His mind was stuck on the memory. It's in him, his mom had said. What did that mean? Was the program inside him? A chip? A code? His head throbbed, and he touched the spot where he'd hit the window. His fingers came away wet with blood. Marcus noticed and leaned back, his face concerned. You okay? Tom shook his head, his voice trembling. I remembered something. My parents, they said the program was for me. Marcus's eyes widened, just for a second, before he masked it. What else did you see? Before Tom could answer, Lena slammed on the brakes again. The SUV skidded to a stop in a clearing, surrounded by towering pines. We're not alone, she said, her voice low. Tom followed her gaze and froze. A figure stood in the shadows, barely visible in the moonlight. It was a man, tall and thin, his face hidden by a hood. But Tom knew those eyes. They were the same ones from the Galatha man who didn't laugh. Who is he? Tom whispered, his heart pounding. Marcus's face hardened. Trouble, he said, gripping his gun. Stay here. Lena opened her door, her hand on her weapon. No way. If that's who I think it is, we're all in danger. The man stepped forward, his hands raised, his voice calm but chilling. No need for guns, he said. I'm not here to fight. I'm here for Tom. Tom's blood ran cold. The man knew his name, and as he stepped into the moonlight, Tom saw his face clearly for the first time. It was older, lined with years, but unmistakable. He'd seen that face in a photo, one his grandma kept in a dusty album. It was his father's brother, his uncle, who disappeared years ago. Uncle James? Tom whispered, his voice breaking. The man smiled, but it wasn't warm. Hello, Tom, he said. We need to talk, now. Before anyone could react, a deafening roar filled the air. A helicopter swooped low over the trees, its spotlight blinding them. Men in tactical gear rappelled down, guns raised, surrounding the clearing. James didn't flinch, but his eyes locked onto Tom's. Run, he said, his voice urgent. They're not here for me. They're here for you. The helicopter's roar drowned out everything, its spotlight turning the clearing into a stark white stage. Tom's heart slammed against his chest as men in black tactical gear hit the ground, their guns trained on him, Marcus, Lena, and the man who just called himself Uncle James. The air buzzed with danger, like a storm about to break. Tom's eyes darted to James, his uncle, whose face was calm but tense, his hands still raised as if to show he wasn't a threat. But those eyes sharp, familiar, the same ones from the gala told Tom this was no ordinary family reunion. Run! James shouted again, his voice cutting through the chaos, but there was nowhere to go. The men fanned out, forming a tight circle around them. Lena's hand hovered near her gun, but Marcus grabbed her arm, shaking his head. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and out of options. Tom's mind raced, replaying James's words. They're here for you. Why? The program is parents' secret, the key Marcus kept talking about. Was it really inside him? The memory from the river, his mom whispering, "It's in him," flashed again, sharp and urgent. His head throbbed where he'd hit it, a dull ache that felt like it was trying to tell him something. But what? One of the men stepped forward, his face hidden behind a visor. Thomas Reed, he barked, his voice amplified through a headset. Come with us, and no one gets hurt. Tom's legs felt like lead. He glanced at Marcus, whose jaw was tight, his gun still in hand but lowered. Lena's eyes blazed with defiance, but she didn't move. James, though, took a step forward, placing himself between Tom and the leader. You don't want him, James said, his voice steady but laced with warning. You want me. The leader tilted his head, like a predator sizing up prey. James Reed, he said, almost amused. The ghost who won't stay dead. Step aside, or we take you both. Tom's breath caught. James Reed, his uncle. The man who'd vanished after his parents' accident, the one his grandma never talked about, except in whispers. Why was he here now? And why did the Crestwoods men want him too? Marcus leaned close to Tom, his voice low. When I move, you run. Follow Lena, don't look back. Tom's eyes widened. What? No, No time, Marcus hissed. Trust me. Before Tom could protest, Marcus raised his gun and fired not at the men, but at the helicopter's spotlight. The light shattered, plunging the clearing into darkness. Chaos erupted. Shouts, gunfire, and the thud of boots filled the air. Lena grabbed Tom's arm, yanking him toward the trees. "Move!" she yelled. Tom stumbled, his heart pounding as he ran, the duffel bag still clutched against his chest. Lena led the way, weaving through the pines, her flashlight bouncing off the trunks. Behind them, the gunfire grew louder, then faded, replaced by the roar of the helicopter lifting off. Tom's lungs burned, but he kept running, his mind a tangle of fear and questions. Where was Marcus? What happened to James? And why did everyone want him? They ran for what felt like hours, the forest a blur of shadows and snapping branches. Finally, Lena slowed, pulling Tom behind a massive oak. She crouched, her breath ragged, and scanned the darkness. "We're clear," she whispered. "For now." Tom collapsed against the tree, his body shaking. The metal case in the duffel bag pressed against his side, a cold reminder of the stakes. "What happened back there?" he gasped. "Where's Marcus? And James, me uncle? What's he doing here?" Lena's face was grim, her flashlight casting harsh shadows across her features. "Marcus bought us time. He's good at that. As for James," she hesitated, her eyes searching Tom's. "He's complicated. Let's just say he's been fighting this war longer than any of us." "War?" Tom's voice rose, sharp with frustration. "What war? Everyone keeps talking about my parents, this program, some key inside me, but no one tells me anything. I'm done running blind." Lena sighed, running a hand through her short hair. "Okay, kid, you want the truth? Here's what I know. Your parents built a program that could control systems, predict outcomes, rewrite the rules of power. It's not just code, it's alive, in a way. And they hid it where no one could get it. In you." Tom's stomach dropped. "In me? How? Like a chip or something?" Lena shook her head. "Not exactly. Marcus thinks it's in your memories, your DNA, something only you can unlock. Your parents were geniuses, Tom. They knew the Crestwoods and their kind would come for it, so they made sure you were the only key." Tom's head spun. DNA? Memories? It sounded impossible, like something from a sci-fi movie. But the memory from the river, his mom's voice, his dad's tired face felt so real. "So what do I do?" he asked, his voice small. "How do I find it?" "That's the problem," Lena said. "We don't know. But James might." Tom's eyes narrowed. "My uncle? Why didn't he ever come for me? After my parents died, I was alone. He could have helped." Lena's expression softened, just for a moment. "He couldn't. He was running, same as you are now. The Crestwoods thought he had the program. They hunted him for years. He stayed away to protect you." Tom's throat tightened. Protect him? By leaving him with a grandma who could barely pay the bills? By letting him grow up thinking he was nothing? Anger flared, but it was mixed with something else, hope. If James knew the truth, maybe he could help Tom end this. Before he could ask more, a twig snapped nearby. Lena's hand shot to her gun, her body tensing. "Stay down," she whispered, peering into the darkness. Tom held his breath, his heart hammering. Was it the Crestwoods men, the helicopter, or something worse? A figure stepped into the moonlight, and Tom's breath caught. It was James, his coat torn, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. He looked exhausted but alive. "Lena," he said, his voice rough. "We need to move, they're not far behind." Lena lowered her gun, relief flickering across her face. "Where's Marcus?" James's jaw tightened. "Captured. They took him to leverage Tom." Tom's heart stopped. Marcus captured? The man who'd saved him, who'd known his parents, was gone because of him. Guilt crashed over him, heavy and suffocating. "We have to get him back," he said, his voice shaking. James's eyes locked onto his, sharp and unyielding. "We will. But first, we need to unlock what's inside you. If the Crestwoods get it, Marcus is as good as dead." Tom's hands clenched into fists. How? I don't even know what I'm looking for. James knelt in front of him, his voice low and urgent. You do, Tom. You've been remembering, haven't you? Flashes, images, voices. That's the program waking up. We need to trigger it now. Lena glanced around, her gun still in hand. Here? We're sitting ducks. We don't have a choice, James said. They're closing in. If we don't do this now, we lose everything. Tom's pulse raced. Trigger the program? How? His head throbbed again, and another memory flickered his dad's hands on a keyboard, his mom's voice saying, He'll know when it's time. Time. Was this it? James pulled a small device from his Pokita sleek silver cylinder with a faint blue glow. This is a neural stimulator, he said. It'll amplify your memories, help you access what's buried, but it's not easy. It'll hurt, and you'll see things you might not want to. Tom's mouth went dry. Pain? Buried memories? He thought of Marcus, of the Crestwoods' laughter, of his parents' letter. Never let them take what's yours. He nodded, his voice barely a whisper. Do it. James didn't hesitate. He pressed the device to Tom's temple, and a sharp jolt shot through him, like lightning in his skull. Tom gasped, his vision blurring. Images flooded his mind, his parents' lab, lines of code on a screen, his mom's face, tears in her eyes. It's you, Tom, she said, her voice echoing. You're the key. The pain intensified, and Tom screamed, falling to his knees. Lena grabbed his shoulders, holding him steady. Stay with it, she shouted. You can do this! The memories shifted, faster now. A sequence of numbers, a pattern, a voice his dad's whispering. Remember, Tom, it's all here. The numbers burned into his mind, clear and sharp, like a lock clicking open. He saw it, the program. Not just code, but a living system woven into his thoughts, his very being. It was power, knowledge, control, and it was his. Tom's eyes snapped open, gasping for air. The pain was gone, but the numbers stayed, pulsing in his mind. I see it, he whispered. I know where it is. James's face lit up, a rare smile breaking through. Good. Now we... A gunshot cut him off. Lena shoved Tom to the ground as bullets tore through the trees. The Crestwoods' men had found them, their flashlights slicing through the darkness. James fired back, his gun flashing in the night. Go, he shouted. Get to the safe house. I'll hold them off. Lena pulled Tom to his feet, dragging him toward the trees. Come on, she yelled. Tom stumbled, his mind still reeling from the program. He looked back, seeing James duck behind a rock, returning fire. His uncle family, he'd never known, was risking everything for him. They ran, the gunfire fading but never stopping. Lena led him to a hidden dirt road where a beat-up truck waited. She shoved him inside, jumping into the driver's seat. Hold on, she said, flooring the gas. The truck lurched forward, kicking up dust as they sped away. Tom's hands shook, the numbers still burning in his mind. He knew the program knew its shape, its power, but he also knew the cost. Marcus was gone. James was fighting for his life. And the Crestwoods wouldn't stop until they had High. Hours later, the truck pulled up to a small cabin deep in the mountains, its windows dark and shutters closed. Lena cut the engine, her face pale with exhaustion. This is it, she said. The safe house. We're off the grid here. Tom nodded, his body aching, his mind heavy. Inside, the cabin was sparsely table, a few chairs, a laptop on a counter. Lena locked the door and set up a perimeter alarm, her movements quick and practiced. Get some rest, she said. We'll figure out the next move when James gets here. If he gets here, Tom said, his voice hollow. Lena's eyes softened. He will. He's tougher than you think. Tom sank into a chair, the metal case from the duffel bag on his lap. He opened it, revealing a small tablet and a USB drive. The program's interface, maybe? He didn't know, but it felt important. He thought of the gala, the humiliation, the bread hitting his chest. He thought of Victor's smirk, Sophia's laugh. They'd thought he was nothing. They had no idea. Lena, he said, his voice steady now, I'm not running anymore. I'm going to use this program. I'm going to make them pay. Lena looked at him, a slow grin spreading across her face. That's the spirit, kid. But first we need a plan. The Crestwoods have Marcus, and they've got half the city's mercenaries on our tail. We need to be smart. Tom nodded, his mind racing. The program was his now, a weapon he barely understood but could feel in his bones. He thought of the man at the Gala James, his uncle watching him, knowing who he was. He thought of Marcus's sacrifice, of his parents' legacy. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about taking back what was his. As dawn broke, painting the cabin in soft gold, Tom made a silent vow. The Crestwoods had humiliated him, but they'd made a mistake. They'd woken him up, and now he was coming for them. The cabin door creaked open, and Tom spun, his heart leaping. James staggered in, bloodied but alive, his eyes blazing with determination. You did it, Tom, he said, his voice rough. You unlocked it. Tom stood, the tablet in his hands. Yeah, he said. And now we finish this. James nodded, a fierce pride in his eyes. Together. The war wasn't over, but Tom wasn't afraid anymore. He was Thomas Reed, heir to a legacy, wielder of a power that could change the world. The Crestwoods had no idea what they'd started, but they were about to find out.